8 people that passed away by HIV and AIDS who are in the film. So it's really, the epidemic is not over, and please tell your friends and yourselves, have safe sex, and always do what you have to do. The epidemic is not over. I would like to see, by a show of hand maybe, is there anybody in the audience who has never seen a ball or didn't know anything about the ball community? Is there anybody? Also, there is a few people. You know, I'm glad you had the opportunity to see what a rich culture exists in Harlem, and it's also very unfortunate that through the AIDS epidemic, a lot of the leadership from the ball community is lost and gone, and they're really struggling to this day. And now with the you know, there's a new epidemic what's hitting the ball community also, which is the crack babies. They are now in their like 18, 13 to 25. So they're really having a struggle maintaining and become empower themselves artistically. And it's really very unfortunate that they're having such a hard time. So I just want to say that as an opening, and thank you for coming. And does anybody have a specific question? Okay, then think about a question. I'm sure a lot of people would like to know, how did this white guy end up doing a documentary up in Harlem? Okay. So it really started in 1989. I was a club promoter in New York City, and I created a promoters league to raise funds for the gay games in Vancouver for 1990. And that's when I met Mike Stone, who is, or was, you know, God bless him too, the oldest and longest running gay black promoter. And when we met, he had a really hard time to find clubs to have his dance parties. And because, you know, I have, being a white boy from Germany, I had access to a lot of clubs as a club promoter, so I helped him out finding clubs until eventually he found his home up here in the Bronx called the Warehouse. I don't know if anybody has been there and knows about the history, but that's how I was introduced to the community. And then there's also Kevin Army, who crossed over from the clubs into the ball community. And that's how I was introduced to the ball community, like through the legends, and then I started interviewing them, and I was able to get the green light to get access to the community. And it was also at a time when Paris is Burning was released, and unfortunately it really exploited the community, and it really has a very heavy impact on the ball community 16 years later, where they still have to feel the exploitation from what Paris is Burning has left for them. So it was very difficult in the beginning to get access to the community, but once I interviewed one-on-one, and they felt where I was coming from, and they look in your eye, and they really, you know, checked me out in that sense. So, and I was very transparent. It was an arts and education project. We had screenings on an ongoing basis. So the input, it was a community project. They could give their input at any time, any point, and nobody signed an agreement until the documentary was finished. I didn't want anybody to say later, you know, I have a problem with this or the other. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was represented, respectful, and everybody had the opportunity to not sign the agreement because they felt so exploited by Paris is Burning, and I felt they needed they needed some kind of project where they had pretty much full control over it. So, anybody has any questions now?
How many houses are there?
Pardon?
How many houses are there?
He said, I mean, sometimes they come and go. I would say active, maybe 30-ish, even so in the film he says there's 100 houses created, but I think if anywhere between 30 and 40 houses that are now active out there right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and I really like your community-based approach to doing the film, and I was wondering in that vein, are there groups doing HIV prevention education that are community-based now that you know of?
Their organizations?
Yeah, in New York City.
You mean like Gay Men's Health Crisis?
Well, I was a little confused in the film that people didn't seem really about House of Latex. And, yeah.
That's okay. We can talk about it because what happened is AIDS is big business now. And again, it's very unfortunate. And what these there's like 5 AIDS agencies that deal with the bald community. And they spend probably over the years now millions of dollars on educating about 500 people in New York City that are actually in the bald community. So I personally have a really hard time with these agencies. For some reason, they were able to cut into the bald economics by keeping them in the artistic ghetto, and when they go for their grants, they talk about how much these children need education, and the bald children are probably the most educated children on the planet when it comes to HIV and AIDS, because they get bombarded from 5 agencies at the same time, by them giving free balls. It's very unfortunate that a bald promoter cannot compete with these agencies, and so what happened is if the actual bald children produce balls, they ended, they had to go back because of their economics, doing it in the smaller clubs, in the bad clubs, rather than developing their economic healthy. And unfortunately, they're not able to do that because these AIDS organizations came in and took the development of their economic away from them. And it's unfortunate, not only are they doing with the bald community, they're also not getting involved in the club dance. So, yeah, I don't know why AIDS organizations have to get involved in balls and dance parties, but that seems to be how they stay in business. On one side, I mean, we understand they're doing good services, but I have a real hard time with these AIDS organizations, and personally I've been harassed by them and my crew. Another agency actually tried to rob me from my film, and so I have a very negative experience working with these AIDS agencies. So.
About how many people are involved in the bald community? I mean, are there hundreds or just a few? And do these balls take place like every week, or And I also, aside from those questions, I wondered, how did you film all this? So that's really 3 questions.
Okay, it took, I videotaped about 10 years. This is a documentary that took 10 years to complete. As far as how many, it's national. They have chapters in most of them on the East Coast, from like Boston, New York, Philly, down to Miami. Then we got Chicago, Detroit, Ohio, and then we have like Californian, a few So those are the major cities, and it's on a national, and they sometimes, they fly in and they have bigger balls, and then they have these competitions. So I think altogether, I mean, there's also a huge turnover with people that participate. I would say at any given time maybe 1,000 people, 1,500 that are active. I mean, it's hard to put a number on it, and I'm really guessing here. So.
How many lesbians participate in the balls?
The lesbians, for some reason, are not as visual. You see more butches now. Like Jamie Balenciaga was really the only lesbian, because that was one of the screenings that I had during Work in Progress. Wolfgang, where are the lesbians? I said, And there's really, Jamie is really the only one that stood out. I mean, if I wanted to pick subjects that had something to bring to the table, I wanted this to reflect what the ballroom community assets are, which are obviously their talents. And Jamie is really the only lesbian that really opened the doors for people, and I think she's wonderful in what she does. And the butches, I didn't really feel there was any of them that opened the doors for the community, and then it becomes like, okay, just because they are there, do I need to include them, even though they don't open doors at this point, because it's like a newer category. And even so now, I don't think the lesbians are not really that active for some reason. Sometimes they cater the categories towards, some are more heavy on the voguing, some are more heavy on transgender, but somehow the lesbians are not that active.
Any other questions?
Yeah, over here.
I had seen watching your film like maybe a few years back, and I noticed that it has changed. I guess the focus is now more on the walk community, but back then it was more of a focus on getting the word out about HIV and AIDS education. What made you decide to go in a different direction?
I'm not sure when exactly you saw it, but when I started, this is my first documentary, so I have no prior experience in documentation. I'm an activist, and I'm using the media to get the word out. It was in my intention to bring the spotlight to the ball community. I don't really think there was a shift. What I did is I created segments. Let's say there was the HIV segment, then there was the transgender segment, and then there was the voguing segment, and then depends on when you saw it. And it could have been that was the time when I was working on the HIV segment, and that might be the reason why you remember it that way, because in the beginning, the documentary, the screenings were only 20 minutes. So, and I just built on it and added to it. So, to me, there was really no shift in